Ladies and gentlemen, how are you guys doing? So, I have a number of different things to talk about. One of them is my spoiler review of Krypton. So, I'll try and get through as much things as I can and as quickly as I can. First of all, in front of you is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. We know it was an epic movie, especially when the fight scenes happened. They were extremely epic. Incredible stuff. I really enjoyed it a lot. This particular scene is where two gods are clashing, Superman and Doomsday. They're both from Krypton, and their gods among men. And that clash was epic. And I remember also the clash between Wonder Woman and Doomsday, and that was rather epic to watch at as well. The sound effects and everything, the music, and just everything was great. But a lot of people put BVS on this pedestal so high, and they say Justice League didn't reach that epic level, and they say, when will we see this again? And I'm like, no, man, come on. Justice League had it as well. Justice League had its own trinity where you saw incredible Zeus. I mean, it wasn't as long and as epic as what happened in BVS, but it was epic. Sorry, but it wasn't as long. It was incredibly epic. I wish I could spend more time on seeing the Battle of the Gods. But anyway, we saw Zeus facing off against Steppenwolf. Ares jumps in the air and slams him with a hammer. Okay, and then let's not forget the other member of the Trinity there, Artemis. Artemis using her arrow and destroying Steppenwolf's ships. Incredible to watch. Incredible to watch. And just so epically beautiful and artful. And that's what Zack Snyder does, right? And you see the lava behind her here. It's beautiful stuff. And just by the way, with respect to Artemis, I found out this information while I was looking online that Hippolyta was actually using Artemis' bow. And you remember, Hippolyta was around the time of Artemis, and she was there with the Great War. So she was using Artemis' bow, which is why the bow was so big. And the other thing that was very interesting, she used the bow, of course, to call Diana, through the what is it called? The throne of the Amazons, I think it was called. Yeah, to light that fire there. And then, of course, Diana was actually working on a sculpture of Artemis. She was actually working on it. That was so cool. I thought it was really cool. And, Diana didn't know Artemis personally, but I'm pretty sure that Hippolyta did. So we had this trinity of gods, and I thought that was so epic, man. I could take on watching that, more of that entire scene, but of course for runtime they cut it down. I would love to see more though. More is always better, but then again, it's good that they leave you wanting more. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we'll get some of that in the new gods or the old gods. Who knows? And Diana is the last of the old gods, kind of like. What's interesting here, you see the Trinity: Artemis, Zeus, and Ares, and they're of course much bigger than the other occupants of Earth. And then you would also notice Hippolyta on the side there, Antiope. We have Penthesilea there. We have Menelope. We have a couple other Amazons on the right here. I also have an Amazon right here, and she's with King Arthur, maybe King Arthur. I don't know. And then you see an African brother in the back there. We also have some Vikings here, and then we have the Atlanteans over on this side. We see an Atlantean soldier here. That's not an Amazon. That's an Atlantean. Which is pretty cool. Or maybe it's an Amazon. Who knows? But they're all fighting together. That's the important thing. And I just pointed out the Trinities because Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were a Trinity. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, I wanted to show you a connection between Man of Steel and Justice League that I think a lot of people may not have seen. And the only way best to describe that is to show how BVS was that link, strong link between Man of Steel and Justice League. I mean, very strong link. The point behind BVS and why it was called BVS is very important. And the best way to describe that was to show that BVS was really about the birth of Superman or Hope in Batman, Bruce Wayne. And not just Bruce Wayne, but Batman. And I'll show you it right here. I use the Matrix as my analogy. My analogy is actually a negative one when it comes to the Matrix, where Agent Smith, he's no longer an agent of the system, but he's still called Smith. He was able to possess a resistance person from Zion called Bane in Matrix Revolutions. And by him possessing Bane, he was able to take over Bane's mind, and he took him over in the Matrix and then go into Bane's body after Bane had disconnected. So Bane was no longer Bane. Bane was dead. All right, Smith had killed Bane, and he was taking over his mind and running his body. And so what was crazy about that was everything that Bane said now were words and actions that Smith was doing. So Bane was now an embodiment of Smith. And so in the Matrix, Neo is looking at Bane. He's wondering what's going on here, and then he begins to notice and listen to what Bane is saying, and he realizes, and he can't believe it, but he's beginning to realize that it's Smith in Bane. And so Smith says, "Yes, that's it, Mr. Anderson," because he's calling Mr. Anderson all the time, which is not what Bane would call him. "Look past the flesh and see your enemy." And when he ends up fighting Bane, which is really Smith, because they're fighting for a gun, eventually Smith is able to electrocute Neo in his eyes, burn out his eyes. Neo can't see, he's blind. And Smith is calling him the blind messiah and all kinds of crazy stuff and trash talking. He picks up a crowbar to take out Neo, and Neo can see him. He can see anything that's machine. He can see him, he can feel him. And so we see, first of all, Bane in a posture as Neo's about to hit him over the head with a crowbar and kill him. We see Bane looking up at Neo. And then Neo is seeing this. He's seeing Smith. So this is Bane here, and this is Smith. And there are two different actors playing this. Okay, this is Hugo Weaving on the right, and this actor, I don't know what his name is. I forgot to research it. But the guy does an extraordinary job of emulating the character of Smith that Hugo Weaving is actually the guy that acts. Down to the words, the phrasing, the actions, the movement. It's just sick. And he was really playing Bane in the movie. It was a totally different character, which is really cool. I love the performance of the guy. But what I'm saying is that because Smith inhabited Bane, Bane embodied Smith now. It was no longer Bane. And that, to me, is the best way to describe BVS, because at the end of BVS, Batman embodies the hope and attitude of Superman. And that is why BVS is so important in connecting Man of Steel to Justice League, because Superman carries on in Batman until Superman is brought back to life. And even then, Batman still carries Superman with him. And because Batman carries Superman in him, Batman v Superman makes so much sense. Because the V stands for with. Batman with Superman. And so, or Batman with Hope. So BVS was pivotal to going from Man of Steel to Justice League. Without BVS, we would not have Justice League. That's how deep it goes. Because we wouldn't have Superman inside of Batman driving Batman to pull together this league. It would have just been Superman alone. Still. And Batman probably and Wonder Woman, and that would have been it. Or maybe not. Maybe he'd have Batman as an enemy. So at the end of the day, we needed to have BVS to connect Man of Steel to Justice League. And here's the incredible thing about it. I told you that Bane behaved and he moved and even talked like Smith, right? Well, check this out. In Man of Steel, Superman is saying, maybe, but I'm not going to allow that to stop me from trying with respect to the world engine that's in the Indian Ocean, which has a lot of Kryptonian atmosphere and kryptonite, and that would weaken him. Lewis is presenting that, and he's saying, maybe it may weaken me, maybe it'll even kill me, but I'm not going to allow that to stop me from trying. And in Justice League, guess the attitude that Batman has. He has a hopeful attitude. He's going to give it a shot. So when the Flash says, man, we may have a shot, I may have a shot at starting the mother box, and I may be able to resurrect Superman or rebirth him. And he says, is that okay with you guys? You guys really want to do this? Batman says, we have to try. The same attitude of Superman. And what I'm trying to say is Superman was embodied by Batman. Batman was the embodiment of Superman. And that's crazy to talk about. And I thought I would just share that with you guys before I go into Krypton, which is what the spoiler review is going to be about. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. But DC Films is awesome. All right, have now the propensity to see every single DC character you could talk about under the sun, because we've began it with the Flash, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Aquaman, as well as Batman on the side here. So the potential is endless. And of course, we got Shazam now. So Shazam is next. There's Billy Batson and Shazam right on the right side here. We already saw Deathstroke. So Deathstroke is there. We had reference to Catwoman and Gotham City Sirens already. So, we saw a Green Lantern in there, so it was a reference to Green Lantern. So you could see this thing taking shape. We had all these other characters shown before in the Suicide Squad. We saw the Joker, we saw Harley, right? We saw Deadshot, okay? In Aquaman, we're going to see Black Manta. So, I mean, it's going to be a good time, all right, with the DCU. But that's film. Let's get to TV, and let's talk about Krypton, which is a prequel to Man of Steel. And Krypton, you got to understand, Krypton's a television show. So let me give you the story of Krypton. So the story of Krypton begins with, the character of Val-El, who is Seg-El's grandfather. Val-El is on trial. That's where Krypton begins. Now let me tell you a bit about the principal characters. Krypton has a number of guilds. It's built in a class system. The bottom of the class, they're not even gilded. Okay? They're at the bottom of Kandor, which is what the city you saw in front there. And basically, there are different guilds because different guilds represent different job descriptions. So, for instance, the House of El were scientists. The House of Zod, they were military people. And the House of M. And there were some other houses which were military. The House of Vex, they were lawyers. They were lawmakers. They were politicians. Okay? So that's what you're seeing here. And these different people, they're going to play a role later on in the series as things go along. Now, Val-El was a scientist, a premier scientist, a great scientist of Krypton. But Krypton became under one head, under one god. The god, it was a theocracy. Basically, Ra'u, the sun god of Krypton, was now the head of Krypton. And Ra'u could supply all needs. The Council of Krypton was disbanded. And the lawmakers now were, everything was under a guy called Darren Vex, who is Nissa Vex's father. So you see Nissa Vex right here. She was the last of his daughters. And Devon M, he was a military guy. So anyway, Darren Vex wanted the support of Val-El to join with the council that is supporting them in supporting Ra'u. But Val-El believed that there was other life besides the life on Krypton. And of course, we know in the history of Krypton, they went on expeditions and all of that, and they went to other worlds, terraformed them and stuff. But apparently they didn't find life there. Anyway, Val-El, he's like, no, there's life on Krypton, and that life could be a threat to Krypton, and then Ra'u would not be able to save us. And they called that heresy and great treason, and so Val-El was executed by being kicked out of Krypton, kicked out of Kandor. Krypton is an interesting place. Let me just go back to it a little bit so you can see something here. So with Krypton, Kandor was insulated. It was inside of a shield, a dome, which was protected from the outside elements, which were very harsh. Krypton, half of Krypton was on fire, half of Krypton was in ice. Okay, so the icy part of Krypton, the very coldest parts of Krypton, were outside in a wilderness land. And so there was a dome that protected Krypton from the elements, and inside there was a city where they could do the agriculture, food, everything. Okay, a self-sustaining city, and it was called Kandor. There were several other cities on Krypton, but Kandor was one of them. And in Kandor, Val-El was tried. He was found to be treasonous, what he believed, and therefore he was stripped of his guild, and his whole entire family line behind him was stripped of their guild, and the House of El was cast to the lowest bottom. They were not even gilded. They were not even named anymore. They were seen as the bottom of the earth. And little Seg-El saw his grandfather die in front of him. Well, at least he thinks he's dead. I don't know if he's dead or not, but he fell from, they removed the platform from him. They kicked him out of the dome, and then they removed the platform from him, and he fell. But the last words that Val said to Seg was, keep hope alive, be positive. And his father and mother, Terrell El and Charis El, they all had to move to the bottom of Krypton, at the lowest caste of Krypton. And at that lowest caste of Krypton, this is where we meet Seg when he's older. He's with his friend Cam, and they're running a scam. And they get some money. And they return home. He returns home to his parents, which are disappointed with him. It's morning, it's daylight. But in the process of doing that, he meets a stranger named Adam Strange. And Adam Strange is a time traveler. And he comes from the future. And he tells Seg-El that he needs to keep this sandstone. There's a sandstone with the House of El. And he says that, you have to go to this fortress of solitude. because it's very important, because your grandson is going to be a very important person. There's danger coming. You need to keep this thing. So he keeps the sandstone. Adam Strange disappears, and he goes and he tells his folks at home. This is the sandstone here. And he goes and tells his folks at home about it. He tells his father and his mother about this. And his father and the mother look at each other strangely as he talks about the Fortress of Solitude. Because they know about that Fortress of Solitude, because Val-El was working in that Fortress of Solitude. That's how he knew the evidence that there was other life on Earth, other life, beyond Krypton. And they were working on that research themselves. And so the father takes away the sandstone. He gives a reason that, the House of El is no longer in existence. He doesn't want Seg to be going with that sandstone. And then Seg, his father goes off to work. Now, his father's working for Darren Vex. He's ungilded, so he's just a nobody, but he still works for him, assists him, gives him coffee, whatever. He was a scientist himself. And on the D-Lo, they're working on the project that Val-El was working on in secret. And this is outside. The fortress is outside of the city of Kandor. So no one really knows about it. And you can see this is them there at the bottom of the city looking up. And higher up in the city, we have the Zods and the military. And in the military complex, we meet Jaina Zod and her daughter Lyta Zod. And Jaina Zod, or Jaina Zod, she is ruthless. She talks about that she's dedicated to the city. And you see her stab her daughter in her hand when her daughter is asking for mercy. And it shows that as much as the Zods love their children and the military people, the military of Krypton are sworn to whatever they're defending. So they're genetically engineered to be sworn to protecting Kandor. And Kandor comes first, before family, everything. If she has to kill a child to protect Kandor, she's going to do it. And that tells us the attitude of General Zod, why he killed Jor-El. They were good friends, and still at the same time, because he's genetically engineered to protect Krypton, and Krypton comes first as far as he's concerned, he will kill his friend. He would kill those he loves just to protect Krypton, because they're genetically engineered that way, right? We have artificial, I didn't say that, but Kandor, there's an artificial reproduction. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that is, but it's pretty much like Man of Steel, where you have the codex coding for the registry of citizens, and you pretty much enter your information into the registry, and then they will tell you your child what they will come to be. It's all preset, and your child's going to have a precondition. They're going to do whatever it is going to be. They're going to do it. So anyway, so Jaina Zod sends that message to Lyta Zod, and then our boy, he ends up meeting up with Lyta Zod because Seg-El, he ends up defending this old guy because the military is picking on him, and he tries to defend her. Lyta Zod arrests him, and then we find out that they're lovers, and they have a background relationship with them. He finds out about her hand. She says, don't worry about it. She's tough as nails. In the end, Seg-El, he went up to see his father because he had to give him some medication in what is known as the Law Guild. There are different guilds, like I told you before. So there's the Lawmakers Guild, where there are lots of lawyers. There is the Military Guild, where you have all the military. And so in the Law Guild, Seg-El goes up. People who are ungilded, not supposed to go there. But he sees this terrorist about to blow up the Law Guild because some freedom fighters from Black Zero is a terrorist group, they call them, but they're really freedom fighters, are about to be put on trial, sentenced to death, okay? And this terrorist goes in there to blow up the whole thing. Seg-El stops the terrorist. He's neutralized by the military and removed. And because of that valiant act, Darren Vex wants to reinstate Seg-El, but he wants to reinstate him as a Vex, and he wants to bond him to Nyssa Vex, his youngest daughter. And the reason, and this is in the presence of his father, who's Tur-El, who's no longer El, he's just Tur. And Seg-El is going to become Seg-X, Seg-Vex. Now, the interesting thing about this whole thing is they don't have marriage there. They have bonding. And what bonding is, in short, is you go and you pretty much take your finger, get it pricked from blood. Blood comes out your finger. That DNA, that genetic material tells you what kind of child you're going to have, what that child's going to grow up to be, and everything. Everything is predetermined, okay, there on Krypton. So that's bonding. That's basically what it is. And it's kind of like marriage, but it's like arranged marriage, kind of like the parents pick who you're going to bond with. And so Nissa Vex, she was bonded to Segel. They went to do the binding. And Segel is really lovers with Lightazad, who is bonded to Devem. Okay? And she had the bonding the next day. And Segel, he left with the sandstone. Basically the little key thing I showed you in the beginning here, he left with that, which is this. This is the sandstone here, okay, with the House of El Sigma. His father took it from him to keep it, but he took it back. He stole it back. And on his way home, the military intervened with him. And they took out the sandstone. And he would have been in deep trouble if he was carrying around the L sign. So he had to fight them all for it. And his mother was following him. And she knew about his relationship with Lightazad, and so did Danazad. Lightazad's mother knew about that relationship. Anyway, in the end, she came, she rescued him from the ship she stole, and they left Kandor. And she got to reveal to him that both she and his father, Terza El, were working on the same stuff that his grandfather was working on, and they knew that there were aliens present in the universe. So they ended up going to the Fortress of Solitude. And when they went to the Fortress of Solitude, using the sandstone to enter it, he got the information that they were working on. But the military were on them, so they had to leave. And they left as quickly as they could. And in so doing, they ended up back in Kandor. But the military caught up with them. The mother hid him, and then she gave a false claim that she was with the freedom fighting group, Black Zero. That got her in front of all of Krypton, the lawmakers and stuff, and then she started speaking about how there are aliens present in the presence of her son, Seg. But in the process of doing that, Darren Vex, he wanted to know where the Fortress of Solitude was, because he wanted to find the technology and stuff for it, and she would not tell him. And it was heresy to say that there were other life on other planets, so she was to be executed. And then they found out that there were two people in the ship, because the military had figured out that. And so the father jumped up in place of his son Segel to protect him, kind of like in Man of Steel and with Jonathan Kent and Kal-El. And so jumped to protect him, and the father decides to shoot Danazad, who's military. But Danazad knows that he's doing that to die with honor, okay? Because he knows she's going to shoot him to kill, and she's going to kill him. The mother does the same thing, so they would die with honor to hide the secret that their Fortress of Solitude is there. And Danazad knows they're hiding something, but she gives them the honorable end. She kills them. In killing them, which is an honorable end, so that's better than having a shameful end like their grandfather, Segel is given the opportunity to still stay a Vex. And Segel, now he's devastated that his parents died. He saw his grandfather die. He saw his parents die. He's devastated. He goes back to the Fortress of Solitude. He gets Kev. He gets a favor from Kev and gets to fly his ship back out into the Fortress of Solitude area. And there he meets again Adam Strange, and there Adam Strange tells him about his grandson once again, which would be Superman, and that time is running out, and that there's an alien coming whose name is Brainiac, and he's a destroyer of worlds, this Brainiac ship, and that he's coming to take out Krypton. He's not only a destroyer of worlds, but he's also a collector of worlds. So that's where the story basically ends. And I gotta say, when you look at the set designs in Krypton, the set designs are really, really, really top class for television. I'm not gonna lie to you about that. The musical scores are generic as hell, terrible scores actually. I don't like them at all. And I hope that they will work on getting much better, more elaborate, better scores for Krypton. So the scoring of Krypton for the pilot was terrible. I hope they improve their music and they get a nice little theme for Krypton as well. That would be nice. Get somebody who can do good scores. Get quality, man. Don't go for cheap stuff. And that let down the movie a lot. Now, in terms of the movie itself, sorry, it's not a movie. It's a television show. I keep on telling myself it's a television show. Now, in terms of the television show and set design, I mean, it's on par with Black Panther. A little bit less than Black Panther, but you can see how elaborate these sets are. It's the concept art for the set. It's really beautiful. Okay. Now the camera angles are just like television. They're not, a lot of really fantastic camera angles. It's pretty much TV, like I said before, but the sets are beautiful, man. And I love the intricate, unique sort of set designs. There's kind of like, very much like Man of Steel, the Krypton of Man of Steel, very flowing set pieces, very web-like, kind of organic-like set pieces. Not as beautiful as the Krypton we saw in the movie, but still. And look at these designs here. This is just fantastic, man. This is the war room. This is the little apartment that they had. The world is kind of, see, this reminds me kind of like a Black Panther. The world. It's a lot more simpler than, say, this is beautiful. This is just simply beautiful. But, and again, this is kind of cheap and simple, but, it is television. The Velcro guild, it's funny how he just pulls off the Velcro guild. It's really funny. So, in terms of the story was kind of rushed. I did feel for Seg a couple times in the movie when he yelled out, but for the most part, you have to follow the main protagonist. You got to invest in the main protagonist in the pilot. I knew they had a lot to cover in 45 minutes, but still, I think they should have spent a little bit more time on Seg and a little less time on the satellite people. This movie's more, this television show and television series is more of a drama. It's more for adult audiences. It's got much more adult content. They try to take the characters a lot more seriously than, say, the CW and even Marvel films. They take the characters a lot more seriously. I think the acting is pretty good, but I think that, again, you have to get the right camera angles, and you have to stress. You have to stress on certain things. Otherwise, the actors look kind of stupid, and they look like they're overacting at times when they're actually putting on a solid performance. But it's just how you capture them that makes it kind of look a little bit cheesy. All right. So you get that cheesy kind of feel. For a pilot, it's good. It's off and running. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not, I wouldn't say it's wows. It's better than Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess in terms of quality. I have to go there. But it's no Incredible Hulk. Okay? It's not the Incredible Hulk from the 80s. It's not Knight Rider kind of fantastic, production. And these are old movies I'm talking about, where you have believable characters. I still don't feel invested yet in Segel. It's not Bionic Woman level kind of stuff. You have to go with the protagonist in these stories, and the protagonist carries the story. So Segel as he's growing and developing, you have to go with him. And even though you're trying to do this little kind of drama, and it seems like they're trying to get the little intrigue and drama in there, you have to be strong on your protagonist, and you have to take your time to build up your protagonist in the story. Yes, you have all the other characters, but if you learn anything about really good TV shows, this Krypton is not going to be. It's not going to be a. It's not going to be. You have to be a believable character, and the only way a character can be believable is you have to spend time on that character. You have to spend time on it. So it's the pilot. Let's see how the rest of Krypton goes. I find it. Let me be honest with you. It's not the greatest thing in the world. Definitely not. Content-wise and idea-wise, it's quite good. A lot of potential. And the other thing that's interesting about Krypton is that when we look at all the players in here, let me just come back here for a quick minute here. Right. When we look at all the players in here, we still have to see the leader of Black Zero, who's Jax-Ur. We also have to see Doomsday and Hawkgirl, and then, of course, the anticipated Brainiac. And Brainiac looks fantastic. I mean, oh my gosh, Brainiac looks fantastic. So I hope that he really can live up to that status as the villain Brainiac. I would love to see Brainiac really done well. So it looks like he looks fantastic. His ship looks fantastic. He looks scary as hell. I like it. It's sci-fi-ish. So let's, the pilot, we got the pilot out of the way. Let's see what they can do with Krypton and really develop these characters, When I think of certain television series that was sold, 21 Jump Street, etc., you felt the organicness about these characters. You felt the believability. I didn't get there with Krypton. As much as they had good content, good ideas, I never felt like I was invested in Seg much. I felt like it was giving us different elements of Krypton, um, but I feel like they should focus more on Seg's story. Stay with Seg and let Seg move around Krypton, and we'll understand what's going on. So I think that's what they're going to do. So I'm looking forward to that, and seeing how they deal with it. Yes, it's like the CW in many respects in terms of sometimes over dramatized scenes. They try to throw in a joke or two in there. Some of the stuff is cheesy, but at the end of the day, we're getting Krypton. Hopefully, they can refine that and really get it nailed down. Because I'm not interested in the CW like that. I'm not even interested in Gotham, and I think an Arrow. And the reason I'm not interested in these particular characters is because, or these particular movies, is because there's no one defining thing about them. Supergirl's good for girls and women and that kind of thing, but it doesn't really appeal to me, so I'm never really stirred up to go see it. Krypton may be a movie, because it's the Sci-Fi Channel. It may be a movie that stirs me up to go see it if they can get their protagonist right. And it's all carried on the actor who's playing Segel, which is Cameron Cuffey. He's a British person, we tell. That doesn't mean much. Let's see if the character evolves as we go from story to story, from story to story. And if he's an evolving character, and they take time with him, you have to take time with these characters. They're evolving, but you can't evolve them too fast now. If they can take time with this character, because clearly when we hear him telling the dialogue, he's much older, all right, to Kal-El. So I have to assume that this character is going to evolve. There's going to be a resistance and all that stuff. I'm hoping it doesn't follow along the lines of that movie that was on HBO with the main protagonist was a girl and a guy. I'm hoping it's not something like that. I'm hoping it's much more. There's something different about it. It tells us more about Krypton, because we got a lot of information about Krypton. Now we know why Zod behaves the way he does. Now we understand why the House of El was hopeful, because the House of El fell from grace, even though Val-El was doing the right thing, and he was convicted in what he was doing. So there's a lot of information we got from the Krypton, and I'm interested about Krypton. Of course, the set design is much more simpler than the Man of Steel set. You know, it doesn't have that deep elaboration. So, you know, it kind of, again, will ramp you down. But the music, there are two things they need to focus on. Try to keep your protagonist, develop as much story around your protagonist as possible, and all the other characters somehow fit in with that protagonist. Okay, don't do like Gotham and move away from Batman and we're not focused on Batman himself. Even though this is called Krypton, don't do Gotham. Stay focused on Seg. You know, if they had stayed focused on Batman in Gotham, I would have cared more about Gotham. You understand what I'm saying? But they didn't stay focused on Batman. I hear they're starting to focus on Batman now. But you have to stay focused on Batman. You know, same thing here. You stay focused on Seg-El, and you can't go wrong. You stay focused on Seg-El and show us Gotham through Seg-El's eyes, and keep on showing us more things about Gotham. Not Gotham, sorry, Krypton, because there's so much more to learn about Krypton, and then to find out more about Brainiac with that, and to find out more about all these other characters who come to the TV show. I'm looking forward to all of that. Let's see how they do it. And this definitely is a prequel to Man of Steel, even though the continuity is kind of messed up a little bit. You know, Dev-M was supposed to be this guy who actually interacted with Kara-Zod, but apparently they've changed it. So David Goyer had written a prequel, and it was supposed to be 18 to 20,000 years before, and apparently that's changed. Or maybe it was an error on their part, I don't know. But there's not that continuity, and there's certain things which kind of seem out of continuity, but maybe they'll balance it out and fit it in with Man of Steel. That would be great if this TV series could somehow flow into Man of Steel. That would be wonderful. But we'll see how it all pans out in the end. Of course, the Man of Steel there has a different kind of Superman glyph on him, but it's still good. We'll see how it goes, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is my spoiler review of Krypton. A number of other things I want to say about Krypton, which I thought I have to put in my criticisms of it. And again, good things and bad things. One of the good things about Krypton is that when you look at the potential from this little pilot that's come off, I don't know how many people view Krypton. I guess a lot of people view Krypton because people want serious movies. When you're dealing with a serious movie, and you're not putting in jokes and a lot of jokes and stuff. So, like, for instance, Hercules had jokes. Xena had jokes. Supergirl has jokes, right? They use the jokes to balance off where things seem to be too incredulous to understand. Krypton seems much more grounded. And it seems that they'll have an explanation for everything, and that'll help us to fill in gaps for Man of Steel, make Man of Steel viewing even more interesting as we learn more about Krypton. So I like Krypton, but here's the thing. They have the potential not only to focus on Kandor in Krypton, but to focus on other cities and other places on Krypton and give us a bigger picture. But it has to be through Seg-El's eyes. Seg-El, you can't just stay on Kandor, otherwise it's Kandor Krypton we're talking about. So somehow, some way, this has to expand. And if they can somehow, some way show how Seg-El, because they may be able to alter the future, and in altering the future course of what happens with Man of Steel, that can be something that changes a lot of things. Storyline, there's a potential for a lot. For remember, they're only in Kandor, which means you have a lot of exploration to do. Maybe you'll do that in the next season where you go beyond Kandor, and maybe they'll address the situation that's happening in Krypton and how maybe they were able to kind of stall some of that problem that was there in Krypton. So clearly they're under a dictatorship right now, and we'll see how they get past the autocratic rule, and we'll see how they move on from there. So I'm very interested in how Krypton pans out, how it could affect the future. It depends on where Jeff Johns and David Goyer decide to go with this property. My thing is, go for the best kind of storytelling. It'll stand the test of time. So I'm just hoping that they can just get better in telling their stories with Krypton. We've got the pilot with Krypton. It's out the way, where the ball is rolling. Hopefully you can tell better and better stories. Because one of the things with these movies, and then the acting has to be on point. You have the Bill Bixby, he went through tragedy even. And we had Bill Bixby, excellent, incredible help, was an excellent story. And out of tragedy, we can get hope. And this is what Krypton has in store for us. It can offer it to us. So we'll see what happens with Krypton. The next episode should come out this week. We'll see how that works out. Was I hyper impressed by the television show? No, it was a little bit. It was a little. I felt happy because of the content in it, but it was a little bit above average, just slightly above average. It was probably average, in my opinion. It wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen. Absolutely not. But it has the potential to really be good. Okay, it has that potential. So we'll see how it goes. All right, you guys have a great one.